Try something new for 2024. iHeartRadio.
iHeartRadio!
Free never sounded so good.
This week on the All-Pro Green Legion Show.
He was number 82, but he's always going to be Mike Quick.
What do you think will happen with regards to the changes with the Eagles?
So I do believe that there are going to be changes. In my opinion, I have no idea what changes, but if you're not making changes after this season, then you're not trying to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
With all that's going on with this team, if you don't make some changes, and I don't know how it's going to go, if it's Nick Sirianni, if it's the coordinators, is it the assistant coaches, but the fact of the matter is, when you looked at this team, they looked ill-prepared. Someone has to be accountable for that. Usually their heads are going to roll when you lose 6 of the last 7, and you just look like and particularly the last 3 games, you just don't look like a team that's ready to play.
The All-Pro Green Legion Show is live every Monday night at Chickies and Pete's in Marlton, New Jersey. Your home for Villanova basketball is WDAS and WD273D, Fox Sports Radio, Philadelphia.
You want to talk right down to earth in a language that everybody here can easily understand.
Time to get ready for the day's action. From the sides to the totals and everything in between, nobody does it better than the Tough Cover with Mark Henry, right here on The Gambler.
Look in my eyes, what do you see? The cult of personality. I know your anger, I know your dreams. I've been everything you wanna be. Oh, I'm the cult of personality. Like Mussolini and Kennedy. I'm the cult of personality. The cult of personality. The cult of personality.
Hello and welcome to the Tough Cover Radio Show. As always, right here, 11 to 1 every Saturday. I am your host, Mark Henry Jr. You can follow me at Mark Henry Jr. _ We are streaming live on The Gambler. You can follow The Gambler at Fox PHL Gambler on Twitter. Get involved with the conversation, which is plentiful today over on Twitter. Active. And there's my co-host back in the studio, Sean Barnard, my guy at Sean _ Barnard 1. Sean, how does it feel to be doing this radio show with maybe the worst person on the planet, at least the worst person in Philadelphia?
Yeah, never would I ever think that I would be the guy up here defending the sport of hockey and our Philadelphia Flyers, but that might be the position you painted me in, Mark Henry Jr. So yeah, it seems like you got in the mud quite a bit late last night and early this morning. So I'll let the floor be yours for your spot here.
Yeah, we'll talk about it later in the show. I honestly don't have that much to say about it. I don't like hockey. And I hope that the Flyers fans who don't root for the other teams, which feels like a lot of them, I've always felt that way. A lot of people pointing out that I'm wrong in that regard. It feels like they use the losses of other Philadelphia teams as an opportunity to go out and be like, hey, we should pay attention to the Flyers. We're actually the best team in Philadelphia. So, I think that happens a lot more than Flyers fans want to admit it happens. I have some resentment because I'm a psycho sports fan who's selfish about the Phillies, Eagles, and Sixers. I've had nothing but heartbreak over the last 2 years. So that's all it really is. So we're going to talk about the sports that matter on this show. Ooh, a little close to home. Ooh. Yeah, you got Panasonic yelling at me on Twitter. This guy gets in my mentions every couple months. Anyway, we are going to be talking about the NFL for the first hour of today's show. I had a heck of a show last week. Not to be, distracted by whatever's going on social media. Last week's gambling weekend, one of the best gambling weekends of my life, nailed the Texans game, nailed a lot of the wild card weekend games, nailed the Packers as well. A couple anytime touchdowns sprinkled in there. It was a really, really good weekend. Felt like we were spot on this show with a lot of how the games were going to get played. It always feels good when you kind of, break down a game from every angle. And it feels like when you're watching the game, you're like, oh, this is exactly what we were talking about. Whereas sometimes you bring things up and they just don't matter. So it's always fun when you're able to kind of crack the code like that. We're going to try to do that a little bit more today, dive deep into each of these 4 playoff games this week. We have even less we have 4 games instead of 6. So you can even drill a little bit deeper on these games. Second hour, though, my guy Trill Bro Dude, one of our absolute favorite guests to have here on the Tough Cover Radio Show. I was on his stream earlier this week for the Joel Jokic showdown, which I think it has to be a tradition when Joel and Jokic play each other that I have to go on those streams because, man, it's been fun the last 2 times that we've gotten that opportunity. So I'll always love to have Trillbro Dude on. He's going to be coming on at 12 o'clock. After that, we'll just kind of hit on the Pascal trade, talk a little bit about the Sixers game last night, talk a little bit about the happenings around the NBA. Obviously, rest in peace to the Warriors assistant coach. That was, what a horrible tragedy. I mean, that was absolutely. Did you see the video that came out of the Raptors locker room with the head coach Darko?
Yeah, very cool. And by the way, he's growing on me a ton. I like him as a coach. I knew nothing about him until this year. Darko Rajakovic is, I believe, how you say his last name, something along those lines for sure. But I've really liked, for starters, they're playing much better team basketball in Toronto. I like that they ripped the Band-Aid off, kind of started this progressive rebuild for this team. And kind of the attitude, the way they're playing, I'm really enjoying what's coming out of Toronto. And I don't think I've ever said that in my lifetime of following them as a basketball team.
Yeah, it does feel like they're kind of getting things turned in the right direction. I kind of like some of what they've done. We'll talk about that later in the show. But for anyone who didn't see it, Darko was, I guess, extremely close to the assistant coach who passed away. And the first play of the Raptors game, they ran his play. And it worked to perfection, apparently, like better than they could have even hoped. So that's just like, as Rico Bosco would say, some things are bigger than sports. That's the type of stuff that's awesome. Let's talk a little NFL. Let's bring it over to the gridiron first. I think it's a fun divisional weekend. I think there's one game that, if you're out there, you have a significant other, and maybe you need lunch, dinner, you gotta keep the significant other happy on football playoff weekends. Maybe you can skip one of the games. We'll get to which one. But today, I think there's 2 games today that are extremely interesting. I think, you obviously have the allure of the 2 Super Bowl favorites in the Ravens and the 49ers playing today. But that's leaving out the fact that you have maybe the 2 stories of the NFL right now going against them in CJ Stroud and in Jordan Love. And we'll kind of drill down on each game, but just from an overhead perspective, I think these quarterbacks are playing at a level that gives you a chance against anybody.
Yeah.
Jordan Love's been the best QB in the NFL since week 8.
He's been phenomenal.
The 49ers secondary, not the best secondary of all time. If there was a weakness on their team, it's that. Maybe they're better against the run than the pass. It seems like that's the case. But if there's going to be anything you pick apart there in San Francisco, it's the secondary. And if anyone has shown that they can pick apart secondaries in the last couple of months, it's Jordan Love. And then you look at the other game. CJ Stroud is in the midst of the greatest rookie season we've ever seen from a quarterback. I think that's inarguable at this point. And I think there's nothing to say that Baltimore is going to come in there. They have a really good defense. They're the best safety in football, the best linebackers in football, really strong interior defensive line, really great, defensive coordinator there. And Mike McDonald, who's up for some head coaching jobs. I don't think that CJ Stroud is going to get shut down in this game. So if Baltimore's going to win, if Baltimore's going to cover, especially, they're going to have to score some points. I don't think this is something where week 1, Houston and Baltimore played each other. Baltimore won 25-9. That was DeMeco Ryans' first game in the NFL as a head coach. It was also CJ Stroud's first game in the NFL as a starting quarterback. I think a lot has changed since then. Let's start with that game, Texans-Ravens. I've kind of given my lean a little bit, obviously, with the spreads, I think. But Texans-Ravens, anything jump out to you there, Sean?
Yeah, I'm kind of buying what you're selling, that I am believing the CJ Stroud hype. I'm liking them to cover the number and keep this a close game, at least within the 1 score. 9.5 is the last that I've seen that number sitting at. And to your point about that first thing, earlier in the season, the Texans facing this team, they also lost to the Browns 36-22 just a couple weeks ago. That game was played on Christmas Eve. So he had that bounce back, and obviously a vastly different version of CJ Stroud and this Texans team last week. I'm buying it. Like, I'm forgetting. Stop waiting for the rookie wall. Stop waiting for it to fall apart. Recognize CJ Stroud for the level that he's playing. He looks like a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. I'm sure that is not going to be a direct linear path full time, but I think he at least produces a performance. This team's buying in, and he's got guys around him. Some of those catches by Nico Collins last week, the way the team just is buying into everything. D'Amico Ryans, everybody saw that clip floating around of him telling the linebacker to say, like, sit here, you're going to pick off this pass, and basically taking him through it. I'm just loving the vibes down in Houston. I think there's a lot of pressure on this Baltimore Ravens team. I've heard some of the quotes coming out about Lamar feeling stressed, and there's obviously this win now pressure on him, who has probably wrongfully so, but has a little bit of a reputation of a guy that does not get it done in the playoffs. So I think Lamar feels the heat. I think this game stays closer than it probably should, and they ultimately keep it a one-score game throughout.
Yeah, I'm totally right there with you. And it's kind of funny. Giving away my pick for the Packers game, I like the dogs today. I like the Texans. I like the Packers. I think one of them probably wins.
Wow.
I think, I don't know which one. When I came into the weekend, I thought I liked the Packers more than the Texans. I thought, Packers, I felt better about it in my heart before doing research, before, all that stuff. There's about the same differential between the line I set and the line that was set by Vegas. So I thought I liked the Packers more. I'm looking for stats. I'm doing my usual trend diving, all the stuff that I do, looking for numbers. And I keep coming away with more and more to like Houston and not as much to like Green Bay. But let's give some numbers here on Houston, because I found some interesting stuff here. People are saying, don't bet the Texans. They're a public dog. In the last 20 years in the playoffs, only 4 teams who were underdogs of a touchdown or more closed with a majority of the tickets. 2 of them have won outright. 2 of the 4. 3 of those 4 have covered. So generally, don't bet public dogs. It seems like when they're big public dogs in the playoffs, they usually cover. This is an interesting one, and this isn't stuff that surprises me. As a home favorite, Lamar Jackson is 15-23 against the spread. Of 220 quarterbacks over the past 20 years, he is ranked 213th against the spread as a home favorite. He's one of the best against the spread underdogs of all time, but has not been nearly as good as a favorite. In the past 3 seasons, Lamar is 6-16 against the spread in games he's favored by more than 3. 1-8 against the spread when favored by more than a touchdown. That's pretty damning stuff right there. Like Lamar, generally, it feels like when they have these blowout performances, it's when they're narrow favorites or slight underdogs. We saw it against San Fran, Detroit, Miami. But then you do see them let teams hang around in games.
Yeah, and I don't think Lamar is perfect. I'm definitely higher on Lamar than I would say probably the national perception of him.
Same here.
Yeah, you as well. We've been on the same page with that one. I feel like it's kind of his time to take that next step. This is one of those playoff runs that is going to come with a lot of pressure. Obviously, the expectation of being the top seeded team in the AFC. I'm buying what this defense is selling is number one. That's why I do think I buy into them as legitimate Super Bowl contenders.
Oh, yeah.
And I do believe in Lamar to take that next step to elevate. And it feels like time for him in his just career arc to finally add some of this real deal playoff success to his resume. So you can't dispute the stats there, the facts there, and obviously the track record that comes with it. But I do feel like it's a little bit different. So I think it's going to be a little bit of a messy performance this week, but I do think that the Ravens get the job done. They do advance, and even if it hangs a little below what is expected, that the Ravens do move on, and I am buying them as legitimate Super Bowl threats.
Yeah, I'm not buying them. It's just more about the situation, the number, all that stuff. And one more Lamar number before I get to a couple Stroud numbers. Lamar faced D'Amico Ryans in week 1 and won 25-9. That's typical for Lamar. In his 81 career starts, he has faced a coach for the first time 41 times. He is 35-6 in those games. When he faces that coach again a second time or later, he's 24-16. Now, that's still a good record, but 35-6 to 24-16, it does seem like Lamar is one of those guys who you can't prepare for until you see it in person, until you see it the effect it has on your specific defense, because he can do so much. So I do think that there is an aspect to once you play him, you do have a better plan for him. And that's not taking anything away from Lamar. It's just, if anything, it's amazing that he's 35-6 the first time he's facing these teams. CJ Stroud, on the other hand, He was the best underdog quarterback in the NFL this year at 6-2, with his team covering by more than 9 points per game in those games. 3-1 as a road dog against the spread. Stroud has 5 outright wins as a dog, and the Texans have 6. I think the Dogs are barking. And to that point, like I said earlier, I don't think you're shutting CJ Stroud down again. Texans team total over 16.5. Give me that as well. 15 of their last 17 games, they've scored 17 plus. 10 of their last 11 games, they've scored 17 plus. They've done it in their last 5 games, including some Keenum games in there. The Ravens have given up 17 plus in their last 3 games, in 4 of their last 5, 6 of their last 8, 9 of their last 13, and 11 of their last 16 games since only giving up 9 to Stroud in his first game. I get that the Ravens defense is great. That number's too low. I mean, you look at when they blew out San Francisco. San Francisco got 19. Like, they've blown out many teams that have gotten 17 plus points because you can move the ball, especially if you do think it's a blowout. Houston's just going to be throwing it all over the yard.
Yeah.
So I think it makes a lot of sense there. I think that number is probably like 3 points too low.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I'm going to join you in that. And for Houston specifically, like, they're a team that I think is more complete than they've been given credit. That CJ Stroud is obviously the guy is the star of the show, but there's guys behind him that this is a talented roster. And I also like the level of having no expectation that I think a lot of times is thrown at young teams, that it's a bad thing that they don't have experience, but there is a freedom that comes with not having these high level expectations. Like, there's far more pressure on this Baltimore Ravens team than there is for this Houston Texans team entering that game. And I do think that matters in the context of things. As far as like the dogs barking conversation, I do think the Niners are the more likely team to produce the blowout, although I love everything about how Jordan Love looked last week as well. But for me, I think the Niners have a little bit more of that killer instinct than I sense on this Baltimore Ravens team. That feels like the game that's going to be up for grabs a little more. I do think the 49ers are going to come in here focused. So I will go against you on that one.
Okay. Yeah. That's, I came in extremely fired up about that pick. And now I'm not as fired up, but I think Jordan Love's playing so well. I have to ride with it. Packers plus 10. I am going to ride that bus. The Packers are 7-6-1 straight up this season as an underdog. That is 1 win away from tying the record for most straight up underdog wins in a single season in the Super Bowl era. LaFleur has excelled in his career as an underdog, 21-10 against the spread, 12-5 with Rodgers, 9-5 with Jordan Love. Love is 5-2 against the spread versus teams above 500 and 4-6 against the spread versus teams under 500. I think that says a lot. Oh, by the way, CJ Stroud, I left that stat out. CJ Stroud versus teams above 500, 6-1. Straight up and against the spread. So weirdly, Stroud and Love step their games up in the biggest possible moments and show out and show up against these good teams.
Yeah, he's a big game riser. That there's an area of, I guess, characteristic with players that it's tough to quantify. You can't put this in there, but CJ Stroud has every bit of that dog in him. And I do believe on him to not blink at the moment. I love that about him. That's one of the biggest things that draws me to a player. And CJ Stroud has that written all over him. So very cool that he's established that this early in his NFL career. And he also has this infectious leadership, everything about him. Very cool that the Texans were able to transition from, it looked like the future was bright with Deshaun Watson when he was showing promise early on. Obviously, things went off the rails there. And for them to rebound as a franchise and find a guy like CJ Stroud, who I can very, very comfortably say I believe will be the franchise quarterback for the next 10 plus years, that is not an easy task. So credit to them. And the Carolina Panthers got to be sitting home screaming still.
Yeah, I mean, it's an absolute nightmare to be a Panthers fan right now. Absolutely. Let's focus a little bit on this game from just a matchup perspective. Like I said earlier, I think that the 49ers secondary is where you can attack them. The problem with that is the Packers defense has been a lot better lately than I think it actually is. They gave up a lot of those yards to Dallas in garbage time. So don't look at the Dak 400 yards last week. It's not what that's based in. Tommy DeVito became a thing because of the Packers. There's a couple of moments this year where their defense looked abysmal. Yeah, exactly. Right there. Sean Stellato. But that's why I think my best bet of the entire weekend, I think I've got to go with the over. I love the over here at 50.5. I mean, the Packers have been an absolute cash cow when it comes to the over. They're 11-7 to the over. They're 8-2 on the road to the over. So once you get outside of the frozen tundra of Lambeau, it seems like it's a little bit better for them. They're 7-1 to the over in the last 8 weeks. San Fran, not afraid to score points either. I mean, you look at them, and they've cashed 3 of their last 4 overs. They've been a pretty good over team as well at 10-7 on the season. This is my best bet of the entire weekend. It's the over Packers-Niners. They are, I think this can be a shootout, 35-30 type game.
So question for you. Do you think the Ravens defense or 49ers defense is better? It's a tough one. That's different.
A really tough one. Yeah, they are different. The Ravens secondary is definitely better.
For sure.
The 49ers pass rush is better.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say both teams are elite in the middle of the field. So I would probably say it's matchup dependent. I'd probably say, are you a team that can handle a pass rush and can exploit a secondary, or are you a team that maybe can't handle a pass rush as well? It's an interesting. It's put me on the spot. I'm gonna say Baltimore's is better.
Okay. Yeah, I've rattled around with this week as well. I've ultimately leaning Baltimore as well, but you can make the argument either side. And I'm curious, like, for San Francisco, I feel like that's kind of their identity of their team more so than Baltimore's is, which is interesting when you kind of look at this, how these teams are going to match up in a potential Super Bowl or just on a week-to-week basis. Like, I feel like this 49ers team, the foundation is obviously the defense. They've kind of established this ability to plug and play quarterbacks, whoever the system is. Kyle Shanahan obviously plays a massive role in making that a successful bridge and that even possible. But I do think that they lean on the defense more. And then Baltimore, I feel like there's more ways to win. So I've very much talked myself into this week of Baltimore being my significant Super Bowl favorite, although you can't overlook some of the other teams that I haven't even gotten to yet.
Yeah, no, I totally agree there. Let's take a break. And let's bring it back on the other side, and let's hit on the next 2 playoff games coming on Sunday. I think there's a game on Sunday. Maybe you go out. You know, it's not. I always say I always want to say apple picking or like pumpkin patch picking, like, because I'm thinking fall. Like, maybe the 1 o'clock slate's not good. If you need to smooth things over with the significant other, maybe that's a good one. January. What are you doing in January?
Yeah, I don't got a good one there. Ice skating?
Ice skating?
For that. You can go in your backyard for that one.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, that's fair. Let's take a break. And on the other side, we'll talk about the Sunday NFL games right here on the Tucker Radio Show.
Fox Sports Radio, The Gambler. Now, total traffic for Philadelphia.
There's a little slow driving along 76 East as you make your way into Girard Avenue. Westbound, you're moving along just fine. No problems right now along Interstate 95. 55 and 42 are looking good. No problems. You're putting across the area bridges. I'm John Butterworth. Total traffic.
Wendy's breakfast, 2 for $3 Biggie Bundles, lets you choose your perfect duo from your fave 4, like a sausage or egg and cheese biscuit, small seasoned potatoes, or medium hot coffee. Limited time only during breakfast hours. U.S. price and participation may vary. Not valid in the combo. Single item at regular price.
The 76ers Insiders Podcast.
I'm Sixers team reporter Lauren Rosen.
And I'm Matt Murphy, Sixers reporter and voice of the Delaware Bluecoats.
We're in the building for each game, at home and on the road, and ready to react to every Sixers win and beyond with you here on the 76ers Insiders Podcast.
Regularly hear from the players themselves when you listen to 76ers Insiders on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Crayola Creativity Week starts January 22nd to celebrate creativity and engage kids all around the world in creative learning. With celebrity creators, hands-on activities, read-alouds, and giveaways, it's easy and free to participate. Register today at Crayola.com/creativityweek.
When you use Bounce dryer sheets and your clothes look amazing, it's the sheet. Less static in your life? Yeah, it's the sheet. Smelling fresher than ever? It's the sheet. Oh, so soft fabric? Ooh la la. It's the sheet. Less wrinkles on your clothes? You know it's the sheet. Bounce dryer sheets. More freshness, more softness. Less static, less wrinkles. It's the sheet.
Feeling trapped with that old phone? Don't. Getting a new phone is easy. Come into Verizon and get one of our best phones on us with Select Trade-In on Unlimited Ultimate Plan and get a plan that helps you save by only paying for what you need. Act now and get a brand new phone at your Verizon store today. $999.99 device payment or full retail purchase with new smartphone line on Unlimited Ultimate Plan required. Less up to $1,000 trade-in/promo credit applied over 36 months. Promo credit ends if eligibility requirements are no longer met. 0% APR. Trade-in conditions apply.
Hey, man, you all right? Need me to call 911? No, call Top Dog Law. Get top dollar for your accident at topdoglaw.com. Once again, that's topdoglaw.com.
The Gambler, Philly's home for all things sports gambling.
Who's hot, who not? Tell me who rock, who sell out in the stores. You tell me who flop, who cop the blue drop, who jewels drop drops, who mostly doji down to the blue drop. The same old pimp, Mace, you know ain't nothing changed but my limp.
Welcome back to the Tough Cover Radio Show right here on Fox Sports The Gambler. I am in the mud at every commercial break. I just have 50 notifications. This is a joy of a day to deal with. Let's talk about the sport that matters. I'll say it again for anyone tuning in now. The NFL, the National Football League. You know, the game where more people will watch Detroit, Tampa Bay in Philadelphia than the next 10 Flyers games combined. Just saying.
Just keep ripping the shots off. Just keep it ripping.
Yeah, I'll just, Lions Bucks will get more viewers in Philadelphia than the next 10 Flyers games combined. It's not a problem. That's all. Yeah. No, I'm exaggerating there, obviously. But let's talk about Lions Bucks because I think this is one of the worst divisional round games of all time. You can blame the Eagles. You can blame the Philadelphia Eagles for it. But Tampa Bay Bucks, man, they couldn't put the Eagles away last week when the Eagles were playing some of the worst football I've ever seen. It was 16-9 in that game, and the Eagles were playing dreadful. There was not a point in that game where it's like, oh, the Eagles are playing even below average. Like, they were so bad the entire game, start to finish. Tampa gets up 7-0. Philly goes 3 and out. There's a turnover in there, and you still can't take advantage of 16-9. Like, that's told me everything I need to know about Tampa Bay. I'm actually going to take the Lions here, -6.5. I'm not confident in it. I've got no stats. I've got no trends. This is a gut play. And I'm worried, honestly. The Lions, all they do is play close games. But I really do think that Tampa is just a fraud. I mean, you saw them the last 2 weeks of the NFL regular season. You saw them against New Orleans, who's seems like they were actually playing way more confident football at the end of the year than Philly was. New Orleans beat them by like 3 touchdowns. I think that may have also been in Tampa. I could be wrong there. But Tampa, I just don't expect them to come out and start the way that they did last week. And you saw their kind of second and third quarter problems before the safety and then everything else like that. So I think the Lions handle business here. I will say I like Mike Evans' touchdown. It didn't cash last week. It's probably plus 140, something in that range. I do think he's a pretty good bet generally for the anytime touchdown. And I had the numbers, but now, of course, I've lost them. This is great radio. 6 of the last 10 touchdowns, 8 of the last 13, 11 of the last 18, 13 receiving touchdowns.
Yeah, and his number sitting at -110 is what I'm seeing for that, but I still like it there. That I do think he fits that category of a pretty much auto bet. That if you take that every week, you will be profitable by the end of the season, and that's kind of been proven by his track record. But as far as the game as a whole, I'm with you. I like the Lions. I got it at -6. I also like the over of 49.5. That I think both these teams are going to sling it a little bit. That was an awesome game between the Lions and the Rams last week. As much as this matchup might not live up to the hype, and for the Bucs specifically, that was way more about the Eagles than it was about the Buccaneers last week. The Eagles are a broken football team, and it was crystal clear for the final stretch of that season. There was no life in that game whatsoever from Philadelphia's side of things, even as the game was 16-9 late in that third quarter. That the gap in that game felt like it was 30 points, that there was no signs of life or really encouragement, despite the will of the city and I guess hopes and fans and everything. Just did not happen. But I do think that there is an expiration date on the Baker Mayfield madness that we see going on. I got a lot of love for Baker, and I respect that he's earned himself quite a bit of money, likely an extension, and really just playing the part of what we expected. The lowest turnover percentage that he's had since his Browns days, playing just far better football as a whole. But I do think that this is a matchup where we start to actually see him measured at I'll still give Detroit the recognition of a legitimate playoff team. I like the way Dan Campbell has them running. I think they covered the -6, and I think their matchup against the Rams was far tougher than this one will be, and that they proved that on the field.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. There's a good chance that the best team out of those two matchups isn't playing in this game. I think the Rams really impressed me last week. Obviously not with their aggression from their head coach, though. Sean McVay, far too conservative in that game. Dan Campbell, aggressiveness absolutely won them that game. And I think he'll be aggressive again today, and aggressive enough to win by more than a touchdown. Did you see Baker at the hockey game? I think the Lightning game with the Yankee shortstop.
I did not. You're watching hockey there, Mark Henry Jr.?
Yeah, right. No, I saw that. Is hilarious. I said that without even thinking of the irony of bringing it up. That's hilarious. No, I saw it on Twitter, but I thought it was very funny. Baker's friends with the 22-year-old Yankees shortstop who was a star prospect. I was curious, I didn't know what the connection was there.
Baker's an interesting character, man. There's dude, for sure.
I wouldn't say I'm a Baker fan, but anytime people hate on Baker for some of the for any of the stuff, his comments or anything like that, I'm always of the mindset I don't care. It makes it more interesting. He makes football more interesting.
I saw the tweet floating around that Baker Mayfield is what Johnny Manziel was supposed to be. Want to know your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, Johnny was more athletic. So if Baker
was more fun.
Yeah, if Baker ran more, then yeah, absolutely. Personality wise, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is definitely fair. The Baker thing it'll be interesting. You're kind of in the Geno spot there. If you're Seattle, Daniel Jones maybe is a better comparison, but the Geno Daniel Jones spot where what do? You kind of have to just pay him and hope it's not too bad of a situation. Hope he can at least be the same, if not average next year, as opposed to what I shouldn't even say that. Geno was average this year. He wasn't that bad. He missed a couple games, but I would say Geno was about average. So maybe I'm being a little bit too doom and gloom about the potential Baker extension. But it would almost be interesting to me to see him go to a better team, a Pittsburgh. It'll be really interesting to see what Pittsburgh does at quarterback. I don't think it's Baker because he can get franchise tagged, obviously. But that would be a perfect fit.
Yeah, I mean, if you're Pittsburgh, you got to go get somebody. That you can't run this back with Kenny Pickett. He's just not the guy, and I don't know how much larger of a sample size you need for that to be proven. But Baker's interesting. I think I give him a little bit more credit than the Geno Smith comment. That to me, Geno's an ultimate steer the ship kind of guy. That you have the right pieces around him, you have the defense around him, the coaching, and he can get the job done. Baker's got some X factors, some spice in him that he'll win you a game when you need him to, and I like that about him. Now, granted, he can also absolutely lose you a game when those moments are right there. So it is the give and take with that. But I am buying a little bit of this comeback for him. I don't think he's a franchise quarterback or a long-term option for any extent, but he did kind of paint this Buccaneers franchise into a corner that you basically have no choice but to pay him and hope for the best. And we'll see how this works out for both sides there.
Yeah, no, that's going to be definitely a really interesting kind of subplot to follow in the off season. So you're on the Lions, right? Is that fair to say?
Lions -6.
-6. Yeah, I didn't hear if I heard you kind of give the reasoning. I didn't hear the actual -6 there. So I didn't bet that one yet. I'll probably be on it. I hope I can get a 6 out there on the market. But let's not waste too much time talking about the Bucs and the Lions because, man, this game on Sunday night is one of the best games I can ever remember. All the storylines, and obviously you could say oh, it's not even better than the time they played 3 years ago in the divisional round. And it's the point is this game now has the added wrinkle of that game happening in the past and being in everyone's brain. Now, this is the comeback. This is, can Josh Allen avenge the demons? Can he kind of continue what he was able to do against Kansas City in the regular season? Can Mahomes continue to own Josh Allen? I mean, and I know it's not quarterback versus quarterback. That drives me a little bit insane sometimes when we kind of talk about things, especially we'll get to Jalen a little bit later. And I think that's happened a little bit with Jalen and Baker Mayfield. But yeah, I think you take a look at this game and pick your story. Pick your narrative, pick whatever you want, because there is so many ways to break this game down. There's so many interesting subplots, interesting factors, interesting matchups in this game. And I'll just be straight with you. I don't have a pick on a side. I have no idea. I have no idea what to pick here. I have a team total. I have my prop of the year in here, but I cannot look at a side and get to the window and bet either side of this game. It's too up in the air for me.
See, I'm still sticking by the principle of getting Patrick Mahomes and the
Yeah.
Chiefs any sort of plus value. I can't pass it up. That in his career, Pat Mahomes 8-1-1 against the spread as underdogs. Ridiculous that that's how small the sample size is, considering how long he's been in the league at this point, and 7-2 straight up in those games. So impressive stuff there. This is going to be a shootout. Getting any sort of wiggle room, I think there's a real chance that this finds its way into a 1 or 2 point game. So taking the spread gives you a little bit of extra bubble there. I do think the Bills are a better team, and they're playing with a different kind of vibe. That there is an energy, there is a momentum that this team has built, and Josh Allen really slinging the football in a way. So considering that their chances when you flash back them being 5-5 middle of the season, looking like they really hit their pitfall when they lost to the Eagles in that overtime backbreaker, Jalen Hurts running for the touchdown, how different the vibes were for each of those teams, both the Eagles and the Bills. But look at the comeback from this Buffalo team. They are bought in. Josh Allen, I also think, is a guy who's feeling this pressure, similar to what I talked about with Lamar Jackson, that he has to get the job done now. That there's beginning to be a growing reputation sticking of a guy who does not get the job in the playoffs. Oftentimes, I think that's unfair, and I don't think it's necessarily true for Josh Allen, especially when you think about some of those, that overtime game that obviously changed the rule of the NFL moving forward and how close he's been in opportunities. When you're running against Patrick Mahomes, this is like going against the Golden State Warriors in the NBA, that you can't hold it against those Western Conference teams. I don't think you can hold it across the AFC either, but this is a prime chance for Josh Allen to kind of kick them when they're down a little bit, but he's still Patrick Mahomes. This is still Travis Kelce. This is still Andy Reid, that I can't pass up getting the Chiefs at plus money.
Yeah, it's that's the thought rattling around in my brain anytime I go to bet Buffalo.
Yep.
That's what's right there. It does feel like if Buffalo's ever gonna do it, if they're ever gonna climb the Mahomes mountain, if they're ever gonna get over the hump in the road, whatever you want to call it,
gotta be.
It's gotta be now.
Mhm.
I just don't know if you lose this game. How do you? It's kind of like how many Sixers failures have we had where it's like you lose this game, how do you go into next year the same way? Like if you're Buffalo and you lose this game, Sean McDermott got it back on track. He hired the new OC who's doing a better job. You haven't lost since the smear report came out against him with the 9/11 Bills. They've been on a hot streak. I don't think you can fire Sean McDermott after going 11-6, winning the division, getting the 2 seed, winning a playoff game, getting the divisional round, and losing to Kansas City again. But what do you do if that's what happens? Like, I just don't know what Buffalo would do if they lose this game to try to get into next year better to compete against Kansas City. That's the part of me that's like, so it feels like it has to be right now, but that's not analytical. That's not based in fact. That's not based in logic. That's just my dumb brain. So I don't know.
And by the way, talking about pressure and timing, the Bills are now at this point similar to the Eagles last year of the payments are upcoming. And there's going to be some hard decisions for the rest of this roster that you're going to have to begin to prioritize guys, figure out who fits. And when you don't get that combination right or don't make the proper decisions with who your long-term options are, it all kind of unravels from there. So this is the strike while the iron's hot opportunity. I'm beginning to talk myself back in the Bills a little bit here, but I still, my sensible side still says it's Patrick Mahomes, it's Andy Reid, and they did look like the same old Chiefs last week against the Dolphins. I know that Miami has their fraud accusations of their own with Mike McDaniel, and obviously the snow playing a factor in that one. But Kansas City looked as dominant as ever. That was a convincing win to me, and one that opened my eyes sitting there saying, you cannot count out this team for another Super Bowl.
Yeah, so the bet that I do have on this game is the Chiefs team total over 20.5, which I believe they've done in 10 of their games. They've done it in more games than they haven't. My take on this, if Buffalo's going to win, I know Kansas City's had offensive struggles, but if Buffalo's going to win, I think they're going to have to score. Yep. I think Kansas City is going to be able to get points on the board. Even last week, maybe not the amount of points we wanted to see them score. But Kansas City, was able to move the ball at will there against Miami in terrible conditions. So they ended up scoring 26 points. So they went well over this, but they kicked a lot of field goals. They struggled in the red zone. And I know a lot of people look at that and they go, oh, that team stinks in the red zone. They're going to continue to stink in the red zone. To me, I think red zone is kind of based on luck a lot of the time. A lot of it is just based on, a bounce of the ball, a break of the play. And, I think that You can look at it year to year. You can look at it month to month. It doesn't seem to have a lot of correlation from month to month, from year to year, which makes me think it's kind of something that regresses positively and negatively to the mean. And if that happens, then Kansas City is going to score more touchdowns if they are able to move the ball in the same way that they were last week. So I think Kansas City is going to be able to score. So give me the team total over 20.5. And if Kansas City is going to win the game, I think they're going to have to hold Buffalo. If this is a low scoring game, I think Kansas City wins. If it's a shootout, I tend to think Buffalo has a better chance to win. That's my thought on it.
I think that's fair. And it's also interesting seeing this different version of the Kansas City Chiefs, that while I kind of hyped it up that this is the team, we know it's Andy Reid, Travis Kelce, Patrick Mahomes is the guy that's front and center of things. This team's identity this season has been their defense. They are giving teams issues. They are forcing turnovers. That's going to be a large factor. I also kind of feel like Buffalo's due for a couple turnovers. That Josh Allen's been pretty good. He had a seamless record with that last week without coughing the ball up. But he is a gunslinger, and that's the pros and cons of Josh Allen, the ups and downs. You see the benefits and you see the downfall. So a couple mistimed throw or a couple overly ambitious shots deep, and this game's a different picture. So I think that there's more room for error with this Chiefs team. I think that they can win the game both defensively or offensively in a way that I don't necessarily feel about Buffalo. I think they have to put up points. They have to be scoring. So for me, while Buffalo has all the momentum, is the better team, the game script has to go their way in a way that this Chiefs team, it just has a proven ability to find a way to gut out a win and can do it in different ways. So I am, as much as I've danced around it, talked myself both ways, I'm not changing my original opinion. I'm locked in on the Chiefs, and I think passing up on them at plus money is too good to not take up there.
And before I get to my last bet on the card here for football Saturday and Sunday, I will just say last weekend we lost something that was important to this show. We lost something that was important to me.
It's true.
And it's the Jalen Hurts anytime touchdown bet. It's no longer here. Eagles not playing. Can't bet it when he's sitting at home. So, it's been a long day without you, my friend, and I'll tell you all about it when I see you again, Jalen Hurts, in September. But in honor of the Jalen Hurts anytime touchdown being the best value bet in sports for a very long time, I will say the last 3 weeks he did not score a touchdown. That was the first time he had done that since 2021.
And I will note that by my calculations, this Nick Sirianni and Jeffrey Lurie meeting is going on about 24 hours consecutively now. So still no word out of what's happening there. Curious, must have, I don't know, gotten some rest, sleep, food brought in. I don't know what the whole deal is, but yeah, no news whatsoever coming out of the Eagles camp there.
Yeah, let's get to that actually in just a second. But the reason I bring up the Jalen Hurts anytime touchdown is because I think he's been replaced. I think he's been replaced, and it makes me sad to say that. He went 3 weeks without scoring a touchdown. Who hasn't done that? It's Josh Allen. Josh Allen, anytime touchdown. He's my new favorite child. 16 rushing touchdowns, 6 of the last 7. He scored 9 touchdowns in the last 7 games. He scored in 10 of the last 12 games, 13 touchdowns in that stretch. 13 of the last 16 games, 16 touchdowns in that stretch. I mean, the probabilities are just absurd. So you're getting it close to even money. That's a massive 10-unit plus play for me there. That's my biggest bet of the weekend. That's by far my best bet of the weekend. So Josh Allen anytime touchdown will probably determine whether or not I had a good weekend. So that we'll see how that goes. Let's talk a little Eagles.
Let's do it.
And I the last show, Sports Here, There, and Everywhere, Dick Girardi, Mike Kern, John Jansen. John Jansen has been Mr. Sirianni all over the timeline. And there's a big part of me that wants to be there with him and wants to understand where he's coming from. But there's just too many things coming out that make me unsure that this is the type of guy who can turn things around. I mean, Landon Dickerson gives the quote last night that the Bucs fired off blitz packages that they were unprepared for and had never seen before. And Todd Bowles has been in the NFL a very long time. I don't think he's running new blitz packages. So that's the type of thing that it's hard to ignore and it's hard to understand. And you had so many coaches coming out and talking about the way that they handled the blitz in that game when that's all we talked about on the show the day before. Or 2 days before. It's all anyone talked about the whole week was the fact that Todd Bowles blitzes. It's just a fact of life. And we didn't seem at all prepared for it at all. And it's hard for me to understand that and want to bring him back to be the one who fixes it.
Yeah, there's a level of it's just straight up inexcusable that you go to any corner bar in Philadelphia and people are going to tell you that Todd Bowles is going to blitz, that the Eagles have to be braced for this. And the fact that there was no counter from the Eagles side of things is so frustrating and straight up like makes you unworthy of a job to an extent. Now, the part that I'll push back on the Sirianni side of things, I've danced around how I personally feel about this. I ultimately think that the route the Eagles take is that he is back, that they hire new coordinators, and this is a little bit of a save face routine. I expect Frank Reich to be back to the organization. That's kind of the slant that I think that the Eagles is going to take as an organization. But for me, I guess the biggest thing is there is some real deal internal stuff going on within this organization, whether this be finger pointing, clashing of concepts, whatever that is. We truly don't know who's at fault for a lot of this. How much is Brian Johnson with the play call? How much of this is Nick Sirianni's offense? How much of this Jalen Hurts not making the right reads? Frankly, I think Jalen is far on the bottom of that totem pole. That I think Jalen did the best with what he could do. And I was pretty happy with some of the throws that he made. I was pretty impressed by with this. He was dealt a bad hand. And you can check Dan Orlovsky. You can check whoever on Twitter who's caused a whole feud between Robert Griffin III and Jay Gruden there. So I think like it's very clear that Jalen Hurts to me is not the problem. It's absolutely a coaching concept and a playbook thing. But where that blame falls between the Brian Johnson, the Nick Sirianni, and whoever else you want to throw in the mix here, those are some hard-hitting questions that need to be answered. And whatever those answers to that questions are, that should lead the direction for this Eagles team.
Yeah, I think that some of the Jalen stuff out there right now
ridiculous
is just so utterly, donkey brained.
Yeah.
to use any other term would be wrong. I think it is just. Is he the new Wentz? I think Carson Wentz has poisoned brains across the Delaware County, across Philadelphia, across Bucks County, across Montgomery County, wherever the heck you are in the PA area. I think Carson Wentz has broken some brains because I don't think people realize that what happened to Carson Wentz was so unusual that people can't stop talking about it. Like, It's not just like as soon as a quarterback shows any sign of regression, oh, that's it. It's like Frank the Tank from Barstool. It's like another Wentz, another paid quarterback who stinks all of a sudden. It's like he was the 6th or 7th best quarterback in the NFL this year. Steven Ruiz, who's like his biggest detractor, had him in the top 7 or 8 at the end of the season, like after this Bucks game. So I think that it's probably fair to say that we can talk about if Jalen regressed or not. We can talk about what things are Jalen's fault, what things are the coaching staff's fault, what does Jalen need to improve on. That's fine. We can even talk and say that you didn't like how he played against Tampa, regardless of the situation. That's fine. But once we start getting into hyperbole where we're talking about Carson Wentz and we're talking there was a guy out there that was about to be a free ad, but no free ads. There was a guy out there who said he won't be the quarterback in 2026. It's like, what are we talking about? What are we doing here if that's the conversation? Because I just think it's just people's brains have been broken by the Carson Wentz collapse. And I just don't think people realize the NFL, for the most part, like go look at the 32 teams. There's like 16 that don't feel good about their quarterback situation.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's like 4, like Miami or Dallas, where it's like, well, they're good, but we're stuck and we don't know what to do. Like, there's a lot of that out there. Like New Orleans, is Derek Carr bad? No. But do you feel great about competing next year? Probably not. Like, there's a lot of things like that. We're not in one of those situations. We're one of the lucky ones. And my guy, NBA Slime, on Twitter, Terry Franconia, who I get in the mud with quite a bit, but I like getting in the mud with him. We have back and forths, and I think that it's always pretty respectful. He has really kind of come down hard on Jalen, and he said, if you're a star level elite quarterback, you elevate your teams in those moments, like Mahomes, like Josh Allen. Sean Barnard, how did Josh Allen exit the playoffs last year?
Looking pretty sheepish as well, I would say.
Scored 10 points. He lost 27-10 to Cincy. And his response to that was, oh, well, Joe Burrow, he lost to Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow stepped up. It's like he didn't score 10 points on Joe Burrow. He scored 10 points on the Bengals defense. Right. And so that's just to say that I think certain quarterbacks get a little bit more blame than others. Without diving too deep into that and too deep into why I think that, I think that people can read what I'm saying between my lips there. I think certain quarterbacks get more grief than others. And I think we've seen it with Jalen Hurts. I think we've seen it with Lamar Jackson. I think we've seen it with a lot of guys, and it's a shame that I truly do think that that's a problem with the way quarterbacks are evaluated in the NFL. But that's a whole other can of worms. So I'm going to go to break before we open up that can of worms, because we've broken down our 4 playoff games, given out our picks. On the other side, we're bringing on one of our absolute favorite guests, Trillbro Dude, Sixers, slop legend. Bringing him on. You can follow him at Trillbro Dude on Twitter from the Ball Pod. We are bringing him on at 12 o'clock right here on The Gambler.
Want to win $1,000? Be ready to spring into action. Think of it as financial load management.
Once again, Philly the Gambler and Gary Barbera on the Boulevard want to put $1,000 in your hand. Be sure to keep it locked right here to the Gambler and listen weekdays for the keyword from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. That's 9 times a day. Once again, hear the keyword. Go to our website at foxphlgambler.com and enter the correct response, and you could end up with a cool $1,000 in your hand. So is the Gambler and Gary Barbera the best? Boy, I guess.
Yo, the hottest new SUV at the auto show. You saw it, now buy it at Barbera. 16666. Is Barbera on the Boulevard the best? Boy, I guess. It was the star of the show. Buy it at Barbera. 16666.
In order for small businesses to thrive, they need to be smart, efficient, savvy, staying ahead of the market at every turn, finding ways to do more with less, and taking advantage of every opportunity that comes their way. That's why Comcast Business is introducing the Small Business Bonus. For a limited time, you can get up to a $1,000 prepaid card with a qualifying gig bundle when you switch to Comcast Business, the company with the largest, fastest, reliable network. Yep, you heard that right. 1,000 back. Something extra for your company, from the company that powers more businesses than anyone else. So if you're a small business owner, don't wait. Call or go online to learn about the $1,000 bonus today. Comcast Business, powering possibilities.
Ends 2/21/24. New customers with Gigabit Extra Internet, Security Edge, One Voice Mobility Line, and Connection Pro with 3-year agreement. Other restrictions apply. Call or go online for details.
Yo, the hottest new SUV at the auto show. You saw it, now buy it at Barbera. Gary Barbera's bigger, better, better. Durango. 16,666. Ho, ho, ho. Your radio's not broken. You heard me right. You can buy a Gary Barbera Durango from a crazy 16,666. Financing, don't worry. Instant credit. Come and get it.
Philadelphia's Credit Connection.
Durangos, and more Durangos. You do anything, go anywhere. Big, bad, better Durango. 16,666. It was the star of the show. Buy it at Barbera from a crazy 16,666. Come and get it today at the Big Barbera Bargain Corner of Barbeck and the Boulevard in the great Northeast. Is Barbera on the Boulevard the best? Boy, I guess.
From 16,666 for well-qualified clients.
The hottest new SUV at the auto show. You saw it, now buy it at Barbera. High, wide, and handsome, big, bad, bodacious Durango. 16,666.
Crayola Creativity Week starts January 22nd to celebrate creativity and engage kids all around the world in creative learning. With celebrity creators, hands-on activities, read-alouds, and giveaways, it's easy and free to participate. Register today at Crayola.com/creativityweek.
Yo, one thing about living up north, winter hits, and so does the unexpected. So this winter season, if you're in a snow or ice car jam, don't stress. Attorney Big Al's got your back at 1-800-HURT-123. He's a real trial attorney, a real accident attorney, not for play on Instagram looking for likes and follows. Attorney Big Al is your lawyer that has your back 24/7, 365. So bundle up and drive safe. And when the time comes, call Attorney Big Al at 1-800-HURT-123. Attorney Big Al is Jason Fine, servicing all of PA and New Jersey.
Wendy's new breakfast 2 for $3 Biggie Bundles let you create your own delicious combo. Choose from a sausage biscuit, egg and cheese biscuit, small seasoned potatoes, and a medium hot coffee. But it's obvious which combo's the best. Sausage biscuit and small seasoned potatoes. Well, maybe it's the fresh cracked egg and cheese biscuit with a medium hot coffee. Or 2 savory sausage biscuits. Whichever you pick, you can't go wrong. Choose wisely. Choose Wendy's new 2 for $3 Biggie Bundles.
Limited time only. U.S. price and participation may vary. Not valid in a combo. Single item at regular price.
Can't wait weeks for your tax refund? Then don't. At Jackson Hewitt, get money today if you're approved for a no-fee refund advance loan on a prepaid card. Book today at jacksonhewitt.com. No-fee refund advance offered to eligible clients. Application required. Loans by Republic Bank. Details at jacksonhewitt.com.
Can't get enough football?
Look no further than the Good Morning Football podcast. Join me, Jamie Erdahl, alongside Kyle Brandt, Peter Schrager, and Jason McCourty for a daily breakdown of the league's biggest stories.
We'll bring you everything between film breakdowns, matchup previews, and our impeccable game predictions. Get your football fix right here on the GMFB podcast.
We got recaps, retweets, and reactions to all the wild moments you might have missed on and off the field.
Make sure to listen to the Good Morning Football podcast every day on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Spreads, totals, and all the prop bets in between. It's The Gambler.
Are you a business owner, CEO, or responsible for marketing? If you are, iHeartMedia can help you reach your goals and find new customers. We reach more consumers in your target area than anyone else. And we can give you access to those potential customers more cost-effectively across radio, digital, podcasting, and social. We'd love to show you how iHeartMedia can work for you. From your cell, dial pound 250 and say keyword great results. That's pound 250 and say great results.
Ew, gotta get rid of this old Backstreet Boys t-shirt.
Tell me why.
Because it stinks, boys.
Tell me why.
I've washed it so many times, but the odor won't come out.
Tell me why.
No, you tell me why I can't get rid of this odor.
Have you tried Downy Rinse and Refresh? It doesn't just cover up odors, it helps remove them.
Wow, it worked, guys.
Yeah.
Downy Rinse and Refresh removes more odor in one wash than the leading value detergent in 3 washes. Find it wherever you buy laundry products.
Hey, Sean Brace here for DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL playoffs. And they're bringing you an offer that will make the playoffs even more electrifying. New customers, listen up. You can bet $5 on any game and get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Plus, everyone gets a no-sweat same-game parlay for every playoff game day. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code BRACE. New customers can bet just $5 to get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Now, that's only at DraftKings Sportsbook with promo code BRACE. The crown is yours. You must be 21 or older. Pennsylvania only. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. Opt-in required. 1 no-sweat token issued per eligible day after opt-in. No-sweat bonus bet issued based on an amount of losing qualifying bet. Eligibility, max reward limits, and deposit restrictions apply. Terms at sportsbook.draftkings.com/football terms. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
The free iHeartRadio app has over 100 commercial-free stations waiting for you right now. Like Alt2K, a commercial-free look back to alternative from the 2000s. Just search Alt2K and listen now on your free iHeartRadio app.
iHeartRadio.
Free never sounded so good.
What's holding you back from learning the language you've always wanted to know?
Too hard.
Takes too long.
Not with Babbel. Babbel's lessons take just 15 minutes a day.
15 minutes isn't long.
Nope, and they're fun. So you don't realize you're learning a language, but you are. In 3 weeks, you're able to start having conversations. And Babbel's lessons are built around real life.
And with Babbel, it isn't hard.
It's perfect.
Start learning a new language today. Go to Babbel.com. That's BABBEL.com.
This is Katina Mobley. This is what's trending from iHeart Sports Network.
Presented by Mercedes-Benz.
Joel Embiid's game-high 36 points propelled the Sixers through a road win in Orlando last night. Philly has won 4 straight and visits the Hornets tonight after Charlotte beat visiting San Antonio last evening. Villanova men's basketball meets Dan Hurley and top-ranked UConn tonight at the Wells Fargo Center. In an NFC divisional round game tonight, the Niners host the Packers. DraftKings line is San Francisco as 10-point favorites. I'm Bill Horrendon.
The fully electric EQS sedan from Mercedes-Benz is innovation on a magnificent scale. Available with the epic 56-inch touch-sensitive hype screen. The vehicle is all electric. The feeling is all Mercedes. Learn more at mbusa.com/EQS.
Portions of the following program were pre-recorded.
Your home for Villanova basketball is WDAS and WD273D. Fox Sports Radio Philadelphia.
It makes it easier to bear.
Welcome back to the Tough Cover Radio Show. I always say one of my favorite beats of all time. Just one of the greatest beats of all time there. Thanks to Sean Barnard for leading us in with it. Always heavy rap when Sean Barnard's back on the ones and twos, back in the studio. Always. But we're bringing on one of our absolute favorite guests. I believe he's a heavy rap guy as well in the game over there. Trill Bro Dude.
Come on.
Obviously.
It's in the name, Trill.
Exactly. Trill Bro Dude is one of our absolute favorite guests. He is our Sixers slot plug here on the Tough Cover Radio Show. Trill, it's been so long since I've talked to you. It's been a while. I had to have you on.
I know. I was going to say the last time I was on, I think it was after the Harden trade, right? So it's been. I have to specify which one because there's
in
one
Sixers years.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
feeling a lot better than last time I was on. Probably. Very optimistic about the team in comparison.
Yeah. No, I was actually referring to Trill Bro Dude's playback stream from the other day, which you should all go check out on Playback TV. Trill does some great stuff over there. Always a blast interacting with that community. I don't think I've ever been on like a live pod or a live anything with a community that like just active with, and Trill will ask for something and be like, oh, did this happen then? And they know within seconds. It's the best chat I've ever seen. The Trill Bro Dude playback chat. We watched Sixers Denver the other night, the Joel Jokic showdown. And my first question for you is it now like, do we have to talk to the Philadelphia mayor to put it into law that when Joel and Jokic play each other, that we have to stream together for the game?
I think that is the case. Yeah, hopefully Joel plays in Denver next week.
Yeah.
So that we can keep the undefeated streak going. We're 2-0 now. Both incredible games too. Obviously, the last time they came to Philly, Joel went off. He's making it a habit. And both times, very high-scoring games, very fun games. Just elite hoops all around. It's been. I can't remember the last time I had this much fun watching the Sixers, to be honest.
Yeah. And one of the cool things about that game specifically, that Joel Embiid game, and by the way, when you mentioned the chat, your guys' chat was actually who broke the DeJounte Murray trade to me. That's where I saw that as well. As I jumped on
Pascal.
Pascal.
I was like,
yeah,
like, are they going right now?
But yeah, I couldn't take the Stan Van Gundy anymore, so I had to switch over and then tune into you guys. But yeah, that game specifically, it was cool to see Joel win that game in a way that I really haven't seen him. The manipulating the passes, the double-double that way with the 10 assists, kind of beating Jokic at his own game to an extent, and obviously his scoring is still the highlight. So it is really cool to see him rise up for this. And to pitch my whole Joel Embiid spiel here is, I think we're watching the greatest individual season of all time. That if he continues this over the length of the season, I saw the JJ Redick thing going around where there's only one player in NBA history to average 35 points, 10 rebounds, and 5 assists in a season, that being Wilt Chamberlain. And when you look at the minutes in that, Chamberlain played 46 minutes a game. Joel Embiid's playing 34 and has sat out 11 fourth quarters already this year. So I can't believe we just watched him finally get over that MVP hump and get better by just about every definition of basketball. So talk to me, I guess, whoever wants to take the floor for this one. Is Joel Embiid as special as we're giving him credit for?
Yeah, I mean, I said on Twitter the other night, this is by far the greatest season I've ever seen from a Sixer. I don't think that there really is one that compares. Obviously, people will bring up Wilt, who...
Right.
And look, people joke about playing against mailmen and, plumbers and stuff, but, like, obviously what Wilt did was incredible, but on a per-possession basis, when you consider the talent gap between now and the 60s and 70s when he dominated the game, it's massive. And Joel is doing this during a time when obviously scoring is inflated a lot, but like you said, per 100 possessions, almost 50 points per 100 possessions. No one's ever done that before in a season. Also, you want to add on top of that, like you said, probably his best defensive season since the Jimmy Butler year, I would say. 18-19 was really the last time you saw him this engaged. And I think part of that is Nurse teaching him how not to use too much energy on that end of the court and kind of be smarter instead of working harder. And then in addition to that, I think the fact that, like you said, the one weakness in his game was the playmaking and passing. And he has improved on that, career high in assists, around the same level of turnovers, I believe, that he usually has in a season. So despite the efficiency in his passing, his turnovers have remained about the same. And yeah, I mean, look, Charles Barkley was an incredible player. Julius Erving was an incredible player. Allen Iverson, all of them. And it's not shade to them to say that this is the best Sixers season of all time. It's to say that Joel is currently the best player in the NBA in the regular season at a minimum. And in a time when you have, I would say, 7 to 10 guys who could win the MVP, that's an incredible, incredible thing to say.
Yeah, and obviously last night's game, probably one of Joel's like less crazy games as of late, and it was still insane. It's just crazy. The things you take for granted now, it's like 30 points is almost just a given. Anything beyond that is where it starts. Any big takeaways from last night's game against the Magic?
Not really. I mean, they don't have Franz Wagner right now. I know the Sixers beat the Magic. I believe Franz did play in that game without Joel, and they beat them. The Magic are a team that I like watching. I like Paulo and Franz a lot. I think Suggs has kind of taken the mantle as like the new Marcus Smart kind of role player. Really good defender who, you know, as Bill Simmons would say, has a rational confidence on the other end. But really good playmaker, defender. They've got a lot of nice young talent, but if you're to stack up this Eastern Conference, to me, they're the obvious weak team in terms of the top 8. I just think that they have major deficiencies on offense, and they have a really long way to go on that end, which is why if I were them, I would be targeting kind of more of a high leverage shot creating guard, I think, at this deadline to give themselves a puncher's chance at least winning a few games in a playoff series this year. I wouldn't overpay for anyone, but you know, if you could go get a Terry Rozier, a Malcolm Brogdon, someone like that, that just could be a normal guard that will kind of eat plays on the ball, create shots, someone that isn't Cole Anthony or Markelle Fultz. I think it would be really nice. And I think that they're a cool, fun young team, but they're probably a year or two away from being a serious threat to win a playoff series, at least as they are currently constructed. And I would expect the Sixers, especially when Joel Embiid plays, to handle a team like that, even if they're missing like D'Anthony Melton.
Yeah, it's interesting. And we kind of saw this in Philadelphia a little bit, but I think all these young teams with this youthful nucleus, with all this talent, they have some difficult decisions to make. And I think the Magic specifically are a team where I think they should start making them now. That when you look at all this young talent, like guys like Cole Anthony and Markelle Fultz are two that jump out to me that are solid players, could absolutely play a role, but I don't know if quite fit into their core. I think they need more shooters down there. Bizarre that Joe Ingles is on that roster. It was cool to see him and Pat Bev, bringing the heat last night, bumping chests and all that kind of thing. I think Ingles is still a serviceable guy, but they need more of like a shot creator, that type of player that feels like, especially when there's no Franz Wagner there, like the weight that Paolo Banchero has to carry is far too much at this point. So there's going to be some tough decisions. And when you look league wide, like the Thunder are another example that you flash forward a year or two, there's going to be some really tough choices there. But I think the Magic are in the spot where they should be doing that right now.
Yeah, I mean, it depends who you think could become available this summer. Because if you are the Magic, you're not in a position like the Pacers. I understood why they made the Pascal Siakam trade. I think he fits perfectly with what they need. They're never going to get stars there in free agency anyway, so you might as well make a move to get a guy that's about to be a free agent. Look, people think they overpaid. Those firsts basically mean nothing to me. We've talked about this draft ad nauseum, but those picks aren't very good anyway, so I wouldn't really worry about that if I were the Pacers. The Magic, on the other hand, the reason why I brought up guys like maybe like Dinwiddie, Brogdon, Terry Rozier is because I think you could get those guys without paying a premium, and they'll improve you for the rest of the season if you're trying to, make a move and get someone in there that can help in the interim. And then in the summer, if you're trying to get like a big level guy, like what if you make your all-in move now and Trae Young becomes available, or LaMelo Ball becomes available, or one of these guys that really would like perfectly round out your core. So I think the Magic are going to be kind of patient with their build. Like they're probably at where OKC was at last year, where like they could maybe make it into the playoffs and maybe make some noise in the first round. But I think that OKC, and especially with the way Halliburton's playing for Indiana right now, they're probably 1 year ahead of their rebuild, which is why I think they should be like very aggressive and active at this deadline, as opposed to the Magic, who could probably afford to wait until the summer.
And you mentioned your thoughts there a little bit on the Pascal trade, but just to get a more of an overview from the Toronto side of things, from the Indiana side of things, who is it? Is there a potential this is kind of a win-win a little bit? I mean, Toronto should have done this a long time ago. No, but you can't grade it from a perspective.
Yes, I can, because they created this situation. You created the situation. If you had done this a year ago, you would have been able to get value for Fred VanVleet. You would have been able to get value for Pascal Siakam, OG Anunoby. You wouldn't have traded a top 10 pick for Jakob Poeltl. They handled this so horribly. I can't hear that excuse anymore. Oh, it's better
Yeah,
than no,
that's
it's
fair.
not. You put yourself in this situation to make it so that you had to take whatever was available. And I don't think they even got a good return. We'll see what they do with Bruce Brown. I think those draft picks are not very good. This is a team that told everyone that they traded for Jakob Poeltl because they didn't like this draft. And now they've acquired 3 picks at the end of the first, beginning of the second in this draft. So like none of it makes any sense to me. And I think that they should be getting way more heat than, and the way that they treated Pascal on the way out, and it's all so strange. And it just seems very un-Raptors like. I don't know what's going on there, to be honest.
Yeah, I you're totally right. I agree with everything you said there, as we've talked about for sure about how Toronto handles things. I will just say it feels like more than we thought they'd get last week for Pascal. So it's hard for me to that's what I was saying. And I'm a Quickly guy, so you know how I feel about the OG.
I like that one too.
So yeah, that's more what I'm saying. Like kind of looking at those 2 trades now. How do you feel about Toronto going forward? And I know that they traded this first for Poeltl. They don't have a ton of assets in this draft, but kind of like what if you're Toronto, what are you trying to do going forward? Just build around Scotty Barnes?
Well, that's the thing is like everyone's like, well, at least they finally picked a direction. And I'm like, this is first off, they forced themselves to do that at this deadline. I said on the podcast that we had Skeets on last week from No Dunks, and I said on that podcast I actually think they are going to get a good haul because the trade market is just Pascal was by far the best player that was going to get traded at this deadline that we know of right now on January 20th at least. And if that is the case, you'll probably get a decent return. And sure, in a vacuum, all things considered, whether they keep Bruce Brown, they move Bruce Brown, maybe on its face it's a fine trade for Toronto. We'll see. My gut feeling is that they end up trading Bruce Brown sometime in the next 2 to 3 weeks. They can only trade him 1-for-1. You can't aggregate him with any other salary to a team, but like a team like the Sixers, Lakers, Knicks, all could possibly be interested in him at this deadline. And if you can get some extra draft capital and maybe a young player to take a flyer on, sure. My favorite, I know this is going to sound ridiculous. My favorite part of that trade was taking the flyer on Kira Lewis, only because it was like, he's free. We have to make up the salary anyway. He's looked good in the G League. I know he's been terrible in the NBA. He's had some injuries. He hasn't really been able to get into the rotation for the Pelicans. But those are the kind of moves I would be making if I were the Raptors. You have, even with Quickly, you still have a deficiency at the guard position. You need shooting and shot creation around Scotty Barnes. And Scotty is a guy that I think is worthy of building around for sure. I think that he could be a potential all-NBA level player in the future. Maybe we'll get to see kind of what Ben Simmons... I mean, right now he's like a fringe all-star and he's 21, 22. Like maybe he'll have the career we never got to see with Ben Simmons. They're kind of similar players. Scotty has improved his shooting this year, and that's one thing that you really, wanted to see from him. So I personally think he's a worthy player of building around for sure. If you're the Toronto Raptors and your goal is to compete and try to win playoff series, and maybe a few years from now they could be really competitive, take flyers on prospects, get some extra draft picks, and then see where you're at a year or two from now. And who knows, maybe knowing the Raptors, like, I don't think that Masai's going to be shy from like being in on star trades a year or two from now too. Like, I don't think that he's going to sit on his hands and say, we need to slowly build this thing, because he just did that and it ended up backfiring. So I think that they're going to be aggressive in the next few years to try to build a winner around Scotty Barnes.
Should or could the Sixers have matched the deal for Pascal?
No, I don't think so. I think Pascal was basically got to choose where he went, and the Sixers were like, that contract, when it gets announced this summer, I think people are going to be shocked how big the number is. Because if he gets a full 5-year max contract at 30 years old from the Pacers, and by the way, I'm fine with the Pacers doing it, because like I said, they don't get stars. They want to try to maximize, as Halliburton's like almost in his prime. He's like 24 years old now. And he's a guy that I think he might even be turning 25 soon. I might be off on that. But long story short here, I'm fine with the Pacers doing it. From the Sixers perspective, I think it was fine to not overpay for a guy who could walk in the summer. We've made this mistake before with the Tobias Harris trade a few years ago. And look, Siakam's a better player than Tobias, yes. But also, Siakam's 30 years old. There is a drop-off risk. There's always that at the end of this massive contract he's going to get. And if they weren't willing to pay the draft equity, which would be like 3 first-round picks, which is all they can trade right now, plus a massive contract after that, and they didn't even know if Siakam wanted to be here, then it's fine. Because all you're doing is basically, like I said, the repeat of the Tobias Harris deal where you overpay to pay a guy and then you get locked in negotiations and you have to pay them the most amount of money possible because otherwise you lose them and it's a huge embarrassment. So I like the way that they operated. I like Pascal. He's a nice player. I think he would have made a great defensive front court with Joel, but I kind of had to talk myself into the fit anyway because of the clunkiness, because of the shooting and spacing, and I'm fine with them going in another direction.
Yeah, and I think Siakam has made it pretty clear that he wants to get paid. That's kind of the end goal of this. And the biggest point that I think you've hit on, Trill, is for Indiana, you're in a much better spot to – you're not going to be able to outright sign Pascal Siakam free agency or any player of a caliber above him or around him. That your best bet is to get him in the building and put yourself in the driver's seat to have those negotiations. Feel very differently with the Sixers, and it would have felt very Tobias Harris-y from the contract standpoint, locking yourself in for a long-term deal. And I just don't dig the fit as a whole. So I like Pascal. I'm not going to debate that he was probably the best player that's going to be moved, although DeJounte Murray is firmly in that conversation in my mind. And that is kind of where I want to shift the conversation a little bit. I fully talked myself into the DeJounte Murray train, bring him to Philadelphia. We're coming off back-to-back nights with game winners by him, so his stock might never bid higher. What's your thoughts on that one, Charles?
Well, I mean, look, everyone that follows me knows that I was an anti-DeJounte guy because I thought that his all-star game a few years ago was fake and that he is not a player that can, play on winning teams and blah, 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 and all this stuff. But the more I watch DeJounte and the more that he kind of grows as a creator and shooter in his 2 years in Atlanta, the more I can see him fitting on a good or great team. His catch and shoot numbers are like a career high this year. His pull-up shooting is like near elite levels. I don't want to get tricked. Once again, this is exactly what happened with Tobias Harris, where he shot way above his head on pull-up threes that year. He shot like 42% on pull-up threes with the Clippers. And then he hit a game winner the night before he got traded to the Sixers. So I know Daryl Morey doesn't operate that way. That was the old front office that kind of did that. But yeah, I mean, look, DeJounte, the reason why I would like DeJounte's fit on the Sixers is because I think defensively, even though he hasn't been quite the same with Atlanta, I think with a lighter offensive load in Philly as the third option, with Nick Nurse as coach, who likes to take advantage of guys that have really good, tools, long arms, good defensive instincts, I think that he could probably get back to where he was 2 to 3 years ago when he was with the Spurs. This is a guy early in his career that made an all-defense team. He's a deflections god. He is a guy who has, like I said, he is like a 6'10" wingspan. He's someone, I think, if you even go back and you look at his last few years with the Spurs, with Popovich, if you don't play defense, you don't play. So that was like another thing that I think is different in Atlanta, is that he's worked on kind of honing his craft as an offensive player. And in Philly, he would have to re-unlock that defensive guy that he was in San Antonio. And I think with Joel Embiid on the back line, with some of the help defenders that the Sixers have, I think his life wouldn't be that hard. You would just hope that he can get back to that level. And then as an offensive player, look, like, I get the people that are like, don't take the ball out of Maxi's hands. And I'm like, would you say the same thing about Steph Curry? Because Steph Curry is like the greatest off-ball guard in NBA history, off-ball player in NBA history. And right now, other than Steph and like Devin Booker, I think Maxey is probably in that top 3 in terms of an off-ball scoring guard who can be unlocked when he doesn't have the ball. Like, I was watching the game last night with Patrick Beverley running the offense. The swings of offensive rating when Maxey is on the court versus when he's on the bench is not even due to the fact that he always has the ball. A lot of offense is being run by Patrick Beverley and Joel Embiid and Tobias Harris, and he's a guy that just anytime he's on the court, he's such a massive threat as a catch-and-shoot guy, running off screens, getting downhill, that, like, he bends a defense when he doesn't have the ball, too. So, like, I was watching the game last night and was really upset that we wasted the Harden years with Doc Rivers instead of a coach like Nick Nurse, who could unlock Maxey off the ball like he has this year. And I'm just imagining instead of Patrick Beverley, who's actually been a really nice, good surprise for us, imagine if that was a scoring threat like DeJounte Murray, a guy who can get into the mid-range, shoot pull-up shots. He's like elite on long twos this year and is more of a dynamic offensive player. So I think he fits well with Maxey really, really well. And then I think late game situations, like he's shown the last 2 nights, he's that guy. Like he can get into the mid-range, he can get that shot. And like the one thing I think the Sixers are really lacking is a pull-up shooter who can get to his spots and hit big shots in late game situations. And DeJounte would just add another wrinkle to the offense.
Yeah, I've definitely talked myself into DeJounte for sure. And I have a couple trades that I've cooked up here. Some war crimes, some would say. And I wanted to pitch them at you. Before I pitch this one at you. So Zach LaVine. I know it's polarizing.
Yeah.
Let's say that the Bulls can't get a legitimate asset for Zach LaVine. I don't know if I buy that. I think when push comes to shove, someone will give up a pick. I think
it's possible. I think it's possible that like the market's just straight up not there.
It's fair. It could be true. So let's say that that's possible. Is there a chance that the Bulls would opt to trade him with Caruso to get the picks back, and that way you don't have the PR hit of trading LaVine for like salary filler or nothing? Is there a chance that they kind of try to combine those trades?
There's definitely a chance. It's hard for me to see though. Like it's hard for me to see because the Bulls want to win. And like, you know, maybe LaVine and them have kind of fell out and there isn't a market for LaVine and they want to just get off the contract or whatever. But like the thing with Caruso is like he helps them win.
Yeah.
And they're not getting back a player that's going to be as good as Alex Caruso at helping them win games. So if you're attaching him and you're getting picks, if you're getting players similar to the OG Anunoby, Emmanuel Quickley trade, if you attach both of those two and you get back a good player, that's more likely to me than going the other direction and getting picks and saving face in the media because of that. I think they're more likely to just salary dump Zach LaVine than do that.
Yeah, so that kind of kills my I had, you know, a Morris, Covington, Paul Reed, Jaden Springer, and then House or Korkmaz.
Well, you can't trade Paul Reed this season because he has a no trade clause in his contract. So
okay, so
because we had to match that with the Jazz, he basically can deny any trade that happens this year. And the thing is that he would because there's a clause in his contract.
Yes. Okay.
That the team has to win a playoff series for his contract to become guaranteed next year. So Paul Reed wouldn't be included. Now, I think if you went the other direction and you said, okay, we'll take Alex Caruso and Zach LaVine. Here's Tobias Harris, whoever, and a pick or two, maybe. They might be interested in that, but I don't think Daryl Morey would be. If Morey is moving on from Tobias, I don't think he's taking back a Tobias contract.
Yeah.
And I like LaVine a lot. I think that he's being undervalued, if anything. I think that the conversation around him has been absurd, to be completely honest with you. I don't think he's like. I just think that people really lack imagination when they talk about Zach LaVine. I think that people are like, he's a losing player. And it's like, well, yes, when he is the main shot creator or one of the top 2 guys on a team, I don't know if he affects winning, quote unquote, all that much because it's a really hard job and he's not a good enough self-creator and he can't really run offense. But if you put him as the third option on the Sixers, you put him as the third option on the Heat, you put him as the third option on the Lakers, now you're talking about a guy I think that could be really unlocked and be kind of a dynamic offensive force off the ball, on the ball. And in addition to that, like, I don't think he's a terrible defender. I think he's a neutral defender, if anything. But also, teams just don't want the contract. And that's kind of the reality of the situation. So, like, the furthest I could stretch my imagination on this is, like, maybe they would do Marcus Morris, Robert Covington, Daniel House. Like, they could piecemeal together all these contracts and do like a 5-for-1 for Zach LaVine or something. But even then, you might even come up short on the money. So it's hard for me to get there.
Yeah, I knew about the Paul trade clause. I hadn't thought to the next level of the fact that why would he ever waive it because of the clause. Totally forgot about that factor. One more I wanted to throw at you, and this is actually from my buddy who is obsessed with Cam Johnson. I have a buddy who loves Cam Johnson and wants him on the Sixers. And I know you've been pretty high on Dinwiddie getting potentially Dinwiddie in. Is there something with a Cam Johnson, Dinwiddie, maybe Royce O'Neal for Tobias Covington and 2 picks?
I mean, I would do that. I don't know how high the Sixers are on, because you'd have to be really high on Cam Johnson. I'm high on Dinwiddie for Marcus Morris and 2nd-round picks.
Yeah.
Like that's like getting him as like a 6-man. Basically, what if he was the ball handler / spot up shooter instead of Patrick Beverly, and Pat Bev can be more used in like the playoffs? I think Patrick Beverly is like a 10 to 15 minute a game guy, kind of muck things up. Come off the bench. Dinwiddie is a much more dynamic ball handler. He can run pick and roll. He can spot up off. He's like a 40% catch and shoot guy when he's working off stars. Like, to me, that would just be taking a flyer on him probably for the rest of the season and see how it goes, which is why I wouldn't give up real value. I like Royce O'Neal. He's kind of like a different version of DeAnthony Melton in that, like, he's a guy who's going to bomb threes. He's, a capable ball handler, but you don't really want him running offense. He's a better passer than Melton, and he's a little bit better as an on-ball defender, but he's not quite as good off the ball as Melton is. So they're kind of just like different versions of the same player. I think he would be a really nice fit on the Sixers personally. And then Cam Johnson, like, it just comes down to how much do they value shooting from that 4 spot, because Tobias is not as nearly as good of a shooter as Cam Johnson. Cam Johnson doesn't fit all of the things that one of the reasons why I think they'd be really high on DeJounte is he actually fits a lot of the things of the players that they've acquired so far. He has a high steal percentage. He's a good rebounder. Those are kind of the things that like analytics look for now. A few years ago, it was like guys who were like low usage catch and shoot guys, like that were good team defenders and blah, blah, blah. Now the analytics have shifted to more like you want guys who can rebound well positionally, have good size, get steals and blocks. Like, that's part of the reason why they got Kelly Oubre, and they really like Kelly Oubre. Pat Bev also falls in that category. So I think we need to we need to think a little bit outside the box in terms of what Nurse and Morey will be looking for. And I actually think it's more tilted towards that direction as opposed to guys that are like when we were trying to build the Sixers when we had Ben Simmons. And it was like, we need guys who can just shoot. And I like Cam Johnson a lot, and I probably would do a deal like that just because I'm high enough on Cam Johnson that I would take the risk just having another elite shooter in there. But I do think that the team might view things a little bit differently.
Yeah, and we've touched on this a little bit, like the whole concept of this cap space plan by Daryl Morey. That's one of the reasons why, and I agree with you, that like I don't think Morey would be willing to take on the Levine contract. And I'm curious, I think DeJounte Murray even falls in that category of that's a long-term commitment if you do this trade. I kind of just philosophically disagree with that mindset, that I don't see the value, especially when you look at this free agent class, that I don't think there's the missing piece. And obviously there's still some cards to fall. Seen a little bit of the Paul George whispers, which I don't really buy into or think that he ever becomes available to an extent. But what's kind of your mindset, Trill, on like, to me, I don't think it makes sense to just clear all this cap space without a plan. I get like the freedom and the flexibility and Daryl Morey's true chance to put his fingerprints on this roster. But I think you can make a full argument that in today's NBA, there's more of a value to have these inflated contracts and tradable assets than just the space to sign people. So what is your full thoughts on that?
Yeah, someone tweeted at me the cap space plan. Emphasis on cap. It's a lie. It's all fake. None of it's real. This is all for leverage and talks. Like, teams don't operate this way anymore. It's just who's been the best player that's moved via cap space from team to team since that insane offseason of 2019? I think it's Jalen Brunson. And Jalen Brunson was a guy who was kind of a market inefficiency player where like he was really good when Luka didn't play, but also we didn't know if those numbers would sustain. And I think he's become even better than people anticipated when he signed that contract with the Knicks. Like, I knew people that weren't crazy about that deal. I liked it because I saw him ball out in the Jazz series and I was like, well, he can play in the playoffs. So like,
he's underpaid these days.
Yeah, exactly. So like and also we're all biased because he's a Villanova guy. So like we've been watching Jalen Brunson for like 7-8 years.
Yeah.
But I do just want to point out that like the cap space plan is fake in my opinion, largely due to the fact that if they were to make moves at this deadline and only acquire expiring contracts, that would be the alarm bell set off in my head. Like, okay, they know they're getting someone this summer, because you don't take a season when Joel Embiid, like we said, is having the greatest season of any Sixer ever, arguably. And you don't take that season and go, we're good with this roster that we know has pretty massive flaws. Even I know that they've been really good when Joel plays. I know that their net rating is kind of crazy. I don't know if you guys know this, but in the games that Joel plays, they have the 3rd greatest net rating of all time.
Oh, so we've fallen down the list.
Yes. So, okay. Well, yeah, we're 3rd behind both the 96 and the 97 Bulls.
Yeah.
So if they win in a blowout tonight against the Hornets, we might have a chance to get back up there. Look, they've beat every single good team in the NBA except for the Milwaukee Bucks, and PJ Tucker was starting in that game. So, and like as Mike Chiodo said to me, the last time PJ Tucker played an NBA minute, the Eagles were 10-1. To put it in perspective for you, so
that hurts.
So yeah, so that's the kind of thing that we're talking about here. This is a very good team. I think it's obvious what the flaws are, and I think that you can go to this deadline, and like you said, you can have flexibility still in the offseason with these contracts, with these picks, and you don't have to blow everything that you have right now in terms of picks, because you have 3 first-round picks you could trade out. It opens up to 5 in the summer. And in addition to that, like, even if they were just to get Spencer Dinwiddie, who's expiring, and Bruce Brown, who has a team option next year, and go that route, I think that there is a way to make the team better in the interim and still have that flexibility in the offseason.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
I think it's more likely that they walk away from this deadline with like one more playable wing and a ball handler, whether it's a DeJounte level ball handler or a Brogdon Dinwiddie level ball handler. They will come away with a ball handler, one more wing, whether it's a Dorian Finney-Smith or it's someone that's lesser, like a Najee Marshall or whoever, just someone that is playable as like a 7th man off the bench. And then I think that the other thing that they'll be looking to explore is just getting one more maybe reliable backup big that isn't Mo Bamba. So like not actually paying for someone, but getting someone like, if you can get Kelly Olynyk for a few seconds or something, like that mold of player. So I think that they could go both ways, but I don't buy the cap space plan is real. I think they're more likely to build the core for the next 2 to 3 years at this deadline than go the cap space route.
I agree with that. One last question before I get you out of here, Trill. What's the Super Bowl? Who's winning the Super Bowl? Who they beating?
Don't ask me. I have last weekend I picked the Cowboys. I think the only game I got right was the Eagles game. I said the Buccaneers were going to win because we're frauds. No, I did pick the Bills over the Steelers too. That was obvious. Yeah. But yeah, the other games I got all wrong. The Browns let me down. The Packers, obviously, that was miracles, but I was completely wrong about that game. I'm just going to go with the 2 best teams because that's kind of how it's been. I want the Bills to get there. I want Detroit and Buffalo. Like that would be like my ideal Super Bowl, just to see 2 teams that have suffered for so long finally getting the Super Bowl. I think that would be really cool. But if I had to predict, like it's probably just Ravens 49ers, because the 1 seed is just such a massive advantage nowadays, where you get that bye, no one else does. You get a week to get healthy. And like, that's why when you look at the last few Super Bowls, the majority, since they've changed the format over, the majority of them have the 1 seeds. So I'm going to go with that, but I'm praying for a Buffalo-Detroit Super Bowl so one of those teams can finally win one.
We're and all real quick, one more question here. We got chiming in Freddie Burns over at Edge of Philly Sports back home. He said, what about waiting for the buyout market from the Sixers side of things? Is there anything there you think, Trill?
If Gordon Hayward is available in the buyout market, which is the rumor right now, and a lot of people will be like, well, why would he ever come here? Well, they don't know about the new CBA. If another thing that will set off alarm bells is that if the Sixers are making moves to dodge the tax at this deadline, that would be an indicator that they think they can get someone in the buyout market, because with the new CBA, there's the rules with the first apron where you actually can't sign a buyout guy if they make more than like $8 million, I think, and they're released from their team. So like Gordon Hayward wouldn't be able to go to the Celtics or the Heat or the Bucks or one of these teams that's spending a ton of money. So if he gets bought out, it's going to be like us, the Pacers. It's going to be teams that like are below that first apron, and the Sixers have the ability to get below the first apron. I think they're slightly over right now, but they have the ability to do it, and Gordon Hayward would be an absolute... I mean, he would be the best buyout guy that we've had in
our lifetimes.
Years. He's still good. Like, he's still like a good NBA... Like, I think he could start on some teams. So
I think he's better than Tobias.
The dream. I think they're about the same level of player, but yeah, I mean, like, similar kind of feel, like just to have another like version of like Nicholas Batum would do wonders for this team. I think.
Arcaney said, if you had to pick one realistic guy to get at the deadline, who is it? I'm imagining your team DeJounte.
I think they're getting DeJounte. Like
Yeah,
I haven't heard anything. I'm not going based on sources or anything. I'm just like, all of the signs point to DeJounte. That report yesterday about the Bucks being interested, who would be really like willing to push in more? Like, first off, we know the Bucks have nothing to trade. That report was just like yes, they're interested, but like, what do they have to trade?
Chris Middleton. I mean, he's a premier player at this point,
exactly.
Right?
I'm interested in growing to be 6'5", but that's not going to happen either.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But just long story short here, the Sixers would be the team that would be probably willing to push in more chips in theory if the Bucks had anything. So I think that the Sixers are the team, and they're the one that can give Atlanta the most financial flexibility. And I think that if they do get DeJounte, you're going to be shocked how low the price is, because I don't think Daryl Morey's going to overpay for DeJounte. I think it would be like Marcus Morris, Jaden Springer, and like that fake first that we got, not even fake first, but like the lesser of 3 firsts we got in the Harden trade for DeJounte. I don't think that Morey's going to be paying like multiple first round picks.
Yeah, sign me up for that.
Yep.
I'm all the way signed up. But by the way, we're also all the way rooting for the 9/11 Bills, of course. I mean, that's just,
of course.
That's just goes without saying. So.
Yeah. Shout out to our local hero, Sean McDermott.
It's unbelievable. I still can't believe that that's like spurred this run. It's unbelievable. Maybe the most unbelievable NFL story of all time.
Insane.
But that's going to do it for our guy, Trillbro Dude. Thanks for so much for coming on the show. Always great to get the Slop Father on here. Go and check out the You Know Ball Pod, the Patreon. Go and check it out on Playback TV. Hopefully, Joel plays Jokic, and I'll be over there again next week.
Thanks for having me, guys. Peace.
Of course. Always good to have the Slop Father on. That was the best stuff we've done on this show in like a month. That was great. You know, you got the comments chiming in. You got Freddie Burns, Luke, Aaron Riley, either asking great questions or chiming in well in the comments section. You got good questions over there. I feel like I cooked a little bit on my Cam Johnson trade.
I like that.
I feel like I cooked a little. So we're going to marinate on that, and we're going to take a break. We'll be right back with some other NBA takes quickly from around the league before we head over to Green Legion Radio right here on The Gambler.
Fox Sports Radio, The Gambler. Now, total traffic for Philadelphia.
Vine Street Expressway a little heavy on right around the Ben Franklin Parkway through the Schuylkill. As for the Schuylkill itself, eastbound's a little heavy. Gladwin through Belmont and Montgomery through Girard. Westbound side stacked a little heavily right around Gladwin on through Conshohock. And northbound 95 a little heavy right around the airport in the area of Enterprise Avenue and Broad. Eric Herr, Total Traffic.
This report is sponsored by eBay Motors. eBay Motors is here for the ride with the parts you need for the prices you want. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, it's guaranteed to fit your ride the first time, every time, or your money back. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
How about a look behind the curtain at Philadelphia 76ers basketball with the 76ers Insiders Podcast?
I'm Sixers team reporter Lauren Rosen.
And I'm Matt Murphy, Sixers reporter and voice of the Delaware Bluecoats.
We're in the building for each game, at home and on the road, and ready to react to every Sixers win and beyond with you here on the 76ers Insiders Podcast.
Regularly hear from the players themselves when you listen to 76ers Insiders on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
When you use Bounce dryer sheets and your clothes look amazing, it's the sheet. Less static in your life? Yeah, it's the sheet. Smelling fresher than ever? It's the sheet. Oh, so soft fabric? Ooh la la. It's the sheet. Less wrinkles on your clothes? You know it's the sheet. Bounce dryer sheets. More freshness, more softness. Less static, less wrinkles. It's the sheet.
Crayola Creativity Week starts January 22nd to celebrate creativity and engage kids all around the world in creative learning. With celebrity creators, hands-on activities, read-alouds, and giveaways, it's easy and free to participate. Register today at Crayola.com/creativityweek.
Discover, this is Daniela.
Hi, it's Jennifer Coolidge. I just want to thank you for making me feel so special. I earned cash back on debit for my dinner party groceries.
That's great. But with Discover Cashback Debit, we give everyone cash back on everyday purchases. Anything else I can help you with?
Do you like asparagus and mushroom sorbet? I've got leftovers.
Introducing Discover Cashback Debit, a checking account with cash back.
It pays to Discover. Eligibility and terms at discover.com/cashback debit. Discover Bank, member FDIC.
Wendy's new breakfast 2 for $3 Biggie bundles let you create your own delicious combo. Choose from a sausage biscuit, egg and cheese biscuit, small seasoned potatoes, and a medium hot coffee. But it's obvious which combo's the best. Sausage biscuit and small seasoned potatoes. Well, maybe it's the fresh cracked egg and cheese biscuit with a medium hot coffee. Or 2 savory sausage biscuits. Whichever you pick, you can't go wrong. Choose wisely. Choose Wendy's new 2 for $3 Biggie bundles.
Limited time only. U.S. price and participation may vary. Not valid in a combo. Single item at regular price.
Hey, man, you all right? Need me to call 911? No, call Top Dog Law. Get top dollar for your accident at topdoglaw.com. Once again, that's topdoglaw.com.
If you can wager on it, we're talking about it. It's The Gambler.
Yeah. Whoa, hold on. Ultra walk it like I talk it. 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 You walk it like I talk it. 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 Hey, walk it like I talk it.
Welcome back to the Tough Cover Radio Show right here. By the way, I saw Drake and Migos in concert right after the song came out, like a week or two after this song came out, and they did it. It was fire.
Yeah, I figured a lot of Atlanta talk going on with the DeJounte Murray, so might as well tie it.
Yeah, I'm surprised that we're all kind of like, I don't think we would have been here a month ago on DeJounte.
No.
I don't think I would have been. Trill definitely wasn't. Trill was Mr. Anti-DeJounte. Now he's putting up posters in his room for DeJounte Murray. We all want him. I'm in. His stats are better than I kind of ever thought he was when I watch him. He's a rare guy like that, so.
He's a theoretical basketball player to me in a lot of ways, which is kind of why I've been anti him. But if you take the best version of his game from each area, from the Spurs when he had these absurd rebounding percentages, I mean, there was a season where he had over a 20% rebound percentage and had 8 rebounds a game. And I do think this Sixers team needs help as rebounders. And then we're talking about a guy who's literally hit game winners in back-to-back nights, that he does possess that self-creation with the shooting. He's up to 38% as a 3-point shooter. Like, I don't think there's another guy like that out there. So it is a swing for the fences. I hope Morey's ready to get big game hunting and go for it, but I've definitely talked myself into him, and I've not been a Murray guy throughout his career.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. Before we get, I want to ask you a couple NBA questions, but just real quick, I want to get out these college basketball picks and NBA picks that I do have on the board. I forgot to say this one. I have Miami plus 1.5 live right now at Syracuse. They're up a couple points. You could probably still get that line. What I'm seeing right now, it's a pick 'em. Yeah, you could basically get the same line I have if you're out there and want to bet it. Other than that, I haven't placed these yet. So I haven't determined unit count yet, but I do have over 145.5 Winthrop, Gardner Webb. Winthrop, the last 4 overs have hit, 4 of the last 5 for Gardner Webb. Alabama, I like Alabama and Nate Oates plus 5.5 at Tennessee. I'm not a Rick Barnes guy, not a Tennessee guy. I think Bama is better than their record. I like the over at, I believe it's at 144.5 in Northwestern Nebraska. These two teams played earlier this year. They already cashed an over. Looking at the A10, I like Richmond plus 1.5 at Davidson. I think Richmond's the better team. I know they're on the road, but I like Richmond a lot there. We went over the NFL picks already. I like the this just got added to my card. Villanova's defense is bad.
Yeah.
So I kind of like the over in UConn Villanova, 139.5. I'm leaning over there. Not sure if that'll make it to the window, but I do lean the over there. And in the NBA, I like the Oklahoma City Thunder plus 2.5 at the Minnesota Timberwolves. I don't think there's a lot of people out there circling their calendars to watch this game. It's on League Pass. It's not on national TV. This is a big game. OKC and Minnesota. Is this the 1 and 2 seed still? I haven't checked the standings in a bit, but I mean, if they're not 1 and 2, they're 2 of the top 3, 2 of the top 4, maybe even top 5 in the NBA. So
still
1 and 2.
Yep.
Yeah, still 1 and 2 in the West in a really good Western Conference, not even on national TV. Kind of goes to show you that I think OKC is just not getting enough talk at all. Sean, do you know what Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's doing right now?
Yeah, he's number 2 in the MVP race in my mind. That Jokic has been incredible, obviously, but to me, it's very clearly Joel Embiid and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. That this dude's on another level, and he's got every bit of that star aura and every bit of the substance that comes with it.
I saw someone say, should he or Steph start the All-Star game? And it's like, what are we talking about? SGA should be the MVP if it's not Joel, if he doesn't get to the amount of games played. You look at what he's done this year in less minutes than he's played each of the last 3 years, by the way. SGA is averaging 31, 6, and 6 with 70 more steals than anybody else in the NBA total. He's averaging 2.3 steals per game. He's averaging 2 turnovers a game. He's averaging more than 3 times the amount of assist turnovers. He doesn't turn the ball over. He turns you over. And he's also like the second or third best scorer in the NBA. Because what I didn't mention there about his scoring, he's shooting 55% as a guard. It's just unheard of what Shea is doing.
And a guy that, like, an old school game, like, he really doesn't shoot threes either. So as effective as he is with all those numbers is incredibly impressive. The defensive side of his game was something that I didn't really understand until this year. Like, leading the league in steals by a pretty significant margin. It's kind of narrowed the gap a little bit, but he was running away with that for a significant part of this season. I didn't realize what a two-way talent he was. I obviously knew about the scoring ability, but he keeps leveling up beyond, like, even my brightest expectations for him. And I've been a Shea guy. I've always liked his game. I'm a sucker for Kentucky guard. I'll say it over and over again. But even my like brightest expectations or biggest hopes for him, I didn't think he could reach these heights this quickly by any means. And shout out to him for sure.
Yeah, no, it's unbelievable how good he has become. The hate tweets just keep rolling in, by the way. They don't stop, the Flyers fans. Maybe they'll stop at 1 o'clock when the game starts, when they hopefully lose to the Avalanche. By the way, add the Avalanche to my card. Add the Avalanche to my card at 1 o'clock today.
Guy right there. Hockey guy.
Actually, I think we might have a hockey guy. Nah, Marky Pucks, he's not going to come on this show. Not going to come on this show. We'll suspend him for 1 week due to the transgressions of his fellow hockey fans. But that's going to do it for my picks on the day. Let me kind of just looking at the calendar. One thing that stuck out to me this week, the Cleveland Cavaliers kind of feels like a lot of people buried them a couple weeks ago. There were some injuries. They had a rough kind of stretch there. People were talking about when they were going to trade Mitchell. Mitchell's got like 2 years left on his contract after this. One's an option, but he's still got another year left after this. What's going on in Cleveland? Like, they're all of a sudden winning all these games. They've won 6 in a row. They're 8-2 in the last 10. They're all the way up to the 4 seed. Is this kind of what we expected Cleveland to be and where we expected Cleveland to be? Or is this a sign that they're ready to take a leap?
Yeah, I'll admit I was one of those that wrote them off, that I thought with the injury to Garland, the injury to Mobley, that I thought this was going to be a little bit of a sinking ship. They found some stuff. We saw Georges Niang drop 33 this week on impressive performance there. They've got some guys that are competing, some dogs, some guys that seem to be Dean Wade. I'll even throw in the conversation, the guy that's impressed me. Feels like Max Strus is outplaying his contract, which is impressive because he got paid this offseason as well. So I think I slept on the depth of this team, and I give them credit for the way that they are stepping up performing. I think they're going to be a fringe playoff team kind of hanging in the mix. We'll see when Garland comes back and when they recover from injuries. Right now, they're all the way up to 4th in the East at 24-15. I think they drop. I don't think they keep that up. When I'm looking below, I think the Knicks, Heat, and Pacers, and even the Magic all have a chance to sneak back them. But if they're playing like this, can't count them out. So shout out the Cavs for sure.
One last question on the NBA before we wrap up the show. Right now, sitting tied for the 7th seed is the Phoenix Suns out west. They've won 4 in a row, starting to play a little bit better. They have their guys out there. This is kind of the Suns team we were expecting to see. They beat the Kings this week. They smoked the Lakers. They smoked the Pelicans. So pretty impressive stuff from the Suns. Is there a chance we kind of wrote them off too early with some of those injuries? And if these 3 are out there, is this team a contender?
Yeah, you can't count them out. But there's too much top end talent to say this team has zero chance, and they're still not a team, even with their flaws. And we see them with the lack of a true point guard, just how light that team is from a depth perspective. But if they get a ticket in, they absolutely have a chance. And each one of those 3 guys are scary. Bradley Beal playing a little bit better of late. I kind of wrote him off as well, that I wasn't sure if he still had it in the tank. And frankly, I'm not convinced that this is sustainable for a whole playoff run. But I definitely give the Suns at least a puncher's chance.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be something. Like, Phoenix was my pick to win the West. Now the Clippers have popped up. Denver's still Denver. OKC has popped up. They're probably my current pick to win the West. Minnesota's popped up, and we've talked on here. I think Dallas is as live as you can get when it comes to a playoff series when you have Luka and Kyrie. And this is like the opposite of donkey brains. So it's like the good job of the week. Good job to the Dallas Mavericks organization. I haven't heard a peep from Kyrie Irving in 3-4 months.
Great call.
Yeah.
Great job by the Mavs. It's incredibly impressive. I mean, when's the last time we went this long without a Kyrie scandal?
Yeah, that's an excellent point. I start the timer. It's gonna be one of those like countdowns to the last accident kind of things that once the can of worms pops open, it's tough to put them back in. But yeah, shout out to them and Kyrie hooping as well. Been playing some really good basketball.
Well, the countdown till days until the next Tough Cover Radio show is officially at 7 because that's going to do it for this one. Sean Barnard back in studio. You can follow him on Twitter at Sean_Barnard1. Trillbro Dude, go follow him on Twitter at Trillbro Dude. And you can follow me at Mark Henry Jr. _. Keep it locked right here on The Gambler for some Green Legion Radio.
Ew.
How about a look behind the curtain at Philadelphia 76ers basketball with the 76ers Insiders Podcast?
I'm Sixers team reporter Lauren Rosen.
And I'm Matt Murphy.